Okay? Now what we're going to do is talk about the versatility of the shifter, all the different training aspects and different modes, modalities of the shifter. Let's look at unilateral proprioception versus bilateral proprioception. Unilateral proprioception is something that people do all the time. Personal trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers. They'll have the athlete or the client stand on one foot on an unstable surface and balance. So what's happening is unilateral proprioception is happening inside of this extremity. So you've got the peroneals here, posterior tib here, and those two, if you think about just those two, this side and that side, they're working to keep that ankle joint complex neutral. And so when that's neutral and stable, you can produce force and perform. Now when that gets out of neutral because of an unpredicted event, whatever the reason, if the stability is lost and you keep producing force, boom, that's your injury. That's how you cause microtrauma all the way up to tears and breaks. Okay? So that's why unilateral proprioception is so highly used now, because it helps keep that joint complex, the ankle for example, stable during performance. Now, what bilateral proprioception does, which hardly anyone even knows about, that is a communication not from this side or that side of one extremity, but it's this extremity and that extremity communicating with each other. Now the crossed-extensor reflex is basically what I'm talking about. That is in textbooks and has been there for a long time. All the scientists, MDs, most of the medical doctors know about it as a reflex that happens when you are walking along and step on a sharp tack or a rock. As it starts piercing the skin of your foot, you'll pull away from it because you sense the pain and you don't want to do any more damage. As you pull away, the other leg or extremity slams down, takes over the walking gait. And if it didn't come over and help out after this one pulls away from the sharp tack, you would fall down. So that's why that reflex is in there. So bilateral proprioceptive training is pretty much brand new. It's a reflex training that the shifter is basically began. And it's because nothing simulates the thousands and thousands and thousands of mistakes that you can make on an unstable surface with total pure bilateral separation. That means this side is completely on its own, this side's completely on its own, and they have to work together to keep me from tipping over and falling. So, in a nutshell, I can simulate thousands and thousands of mistakes that, like slipping on a patch of ice, stepping in a pothole, rolling my ankle on someone's size 14 in a basketball game, twisting my knee in a football game. Those things happen very rarely. When they do, it's catastrophic. This, I get thousands of them in 10 minutes of training. Tens of thousands of them. So I get a really rapid blast of neuromuscular plasticity work and heightening of my crossed-extensor reflex in particular. So that is the difference between a unilateral exercise, which this unilateral stability exercise is probably the best that you're going to find anywhere on the shifter. But bilateral, that's the one that's infinitely bigger, more important than unilateral, because if you lose your stability, all you have to do is stop producing force, and that's up to bilateral proprioception or the crossed-extensor reflex. Another aspect of it is the direction that you face. So if you look at it from over here, you're going to see, if I face this way, I've got more dorsiflexion. See, my toes are actually having to dorsiflex. So in order to keep these foot pads going, I have to actually have good active range of motion in my dorsiflexion. Now, one thing that people can have, especially athletes, is improper dorsiflexion. So if you show my feet right now, I will tip backwards and dorsiflex. And if I don't have the proper dorsiflexion, I will stick my butt back and step. If I have proper dorsiflexion, I will correct my tipping back by dorsiflexion and rocking forward. That's what this direction does. It focuses on good active dorsiflexion. So if you're going through the progression set on the shifter and you can't do it facing this direction, it's because you don't have proper active dorsiflexion. Very important for athletes or anybody trying to walk around on unstable surfaces. So, another aspect of the shifter is that the lower extremities are not the only ones that can be benefited by heightened cross-extensor reflex. A lot of the textbooks describe the cross-extensor reflex as an upper extremity reflex. If somebody grabs your arm, pulls you towards them, you'll push and pull away. So, if you put your feet on a stability ball, that makes it very unstable, and you can do a core exercise. You can see my lumbopelvic hip complex is really working hard to stabilize. So, and I can do all the progressions just like my feet. I'll stop my left, get it going backwards. I'll move my left into a tandem, and meanwhile, the whole time, I'm having to work my core. So one benefit to having a heightened cross-extensor reflex up in the upper extremity is if you, a good example in sports, is if you go for a dunk and hold on too long and swing and start to fall, if you do contact the ground, instead of producing force and breaking your arm, you'll collapse, just like an ankle sprain.